Thank you all very much. And I've got a letter.
I'm going to start by reading this, and I want to encourage you to go on womenonthewall.org and actually sign on to this letter. And we've partnered, and some of you may know Maria Espinosa with the Remembrance Project. She has signed on to this letter as well. I want to encourage you to go on and sign on the letter with us so we can get President Trump to take notice, just like he's doing a phenomenal job on building the wall. We need him to secure us from within. The same people who are leading the charge against Donald Trump, who is, pushing for this invasion from outside of our walls, is also taking over from inside, and they're using our schools and our education system to do it. And so we need President Trump and in Texas, our leaders to understand that this invasion is coming from inside, and unfortunately they are pushing it. So I just want to read a part of this to you. It says, "Dear President Trump, we believe you, our president, want to make America great again. We are requesting an appointment for you to meet with parents and researchers who do not have a seat at the table at this time, but are requesting to begin the discussion, which is the process of the implementation of the medicalization of our schools through Medicaid." We are witnessing today what could be described as the greatest expansion of the nanny state in the history of America. We believe this expansion to be one of the most diabolical, intricate, and subversive schemes to plague the landscape of American public policy towards socialism. This atrocity is the medicalization of our schools. A view from the classroom of today would astound onlookers that mental health and social and emotional and behavioral interventions have replaced academics. With these wraparound mental health services and interventions into personalities, values, beliefs, and dispositions at school, teachers are expected and forced to monitor and collect personal behavioral data on our children that has nothing to do with education. Data is collected, logged into state longitudinal database systems, shared, and ultimately exposes our children to surveillance capitalism. This personal data is freely given and used by outside contractors, foundations, and businesses to create software, curricula, activities, and programs that delve into changing the personal qualities of children and their families according to government-set objectives. Schools represent a captive audience, as such, prime targets for social policy change. Those of you who have heard me speak before have heard me say, what is happening is in education is a shift away from teaching kids reading, writing, math, and history to attitudes, values, beliefs, and behaviors. It has been codified into federal and state law. It was codified early on with No Child Left Behind in 2001. And what people don't understand is in 2001, when you had federally mandated state assessments, that's when they set up the longitudinal database systems in 2001, because they had to make sure no child was left behind. It was illegal to have a national database on students. So what they did is they set up 50 separate database systems. That was in 2001. In 2009, with the stimulus package, all 50 states got money. Texas took $18+ million to upgrade that database system. Obama, through regulation, not by changing the law, but by executive order, changed the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act to say that our children's and their teachers' private data can be collected without consent in the name of research. What that did is it opened up Pandora's box for all these third-party contractors to have free reign on our children's private data without consent. In 2015, the Elementary and Secondary Education Act was reauthorized and replaced No Child Left Behind and called the Every Student Succeeds Act. When it was originally passed, the Elementary and Secondary Education Act in 1965, that's when you had federal dollars that came back to the state to economically disadvantaged children to teach them to read. That bill was 35 pages long in 1965. When it was reauthorized in 2015, it was 1,061 pages long. And what it did is it codified into federal law the Common Core aligned college and career ready standards. And don't believe our elected officials when they tell you we don't have Common Core in Texas, because we do. And there's a document that proves when they submitted this document for a waiver from the federal government, it said that we were 94% aligned to the Common Core. So they're not being honest. Just on January 14th of 2019, Congress passed and then President Trump signed into law the FEPA Act, the Foundations for Evidence-Based Policymaking. And what that bill did is it basically made all of the state agency databases interoperative. So we have now a national database on students. And when they say every student succeeds, we are now lifelong learners. And so that means every student from cradle to grave. This is serious. It's very serious. And in Texas, Governor Abbott, on his special charges, has put Senate Bill 10, which originally was Senate Bill 63, and we were putting out the warnings about it. They changed it to Senate Bill 10. All 31 senators have signed on to this bill. It passed this morning. It was fast-tracked through the Senate Health and Human Services Committee, and now it will be going to the floor of the Senate. And what Senate Bill 10 does is it sets up a mental health consortium. And the data that they are collecting on our children and all of us, lifelong learners, is psychological and behavioral. It is a complete violation of privacy. But see, we passed a privacy law last session, and they'll say, oh, but we have a privacy law in place. I testified in front of Senator Taylor, and he said, oh, but we have a data privacy bill. And I said, oh yeah, but Mr. Taylor, that data privacy bill has no teeth in it, and it has loopholes for technology companies to do research. So they pass bills and they say, oh, we've taken care of this, but there's complete holes in it. Just like the Common Core bill. They said they passed a bill against Common Core. No, they didn't. The bill actually, if you read the language of the bill, it says that the State Board of Education can't mandate Common Core standards. So I want to encourage you, and I'll take a few questions. If you have questions, please join us in this battle. We've got some people in Washington who are starting to pay attention to what we're saying, but we need the numbers. It will help so much if you go on womenonthewall.org and just sign on to this letter so that we can send this letter to President Trump and to his administration asking them to step in. One, he could reverse Obama's executive order on the FERPA, and that would do a great deal to push back. So there's things that we can do, but President Trump has people around him who are gatekeepers. And let me just tell you, Betsy DeVos is not our friend. She is not our friend. Betsy DeVos is a venture capitalist. And Daniel and I were just talking. I want to encourage you, if you haven't watched the movie The Big Short, has anybody seen the movie The Big Short? And it's a documentary type movie about when the real estate bubble burst. And I want you to watch that movie, but think about it in terms of education. The Big Short, in that movie, the commodity were houses. So when the real estate bubble burst, people just walked away from their houses. Those same billionaires have put their money into education, online adaptive learning. And so the commodity is data. The commodity is our children. My question is, when the bubble bursts and this proves to be harmful to our children, which it already is, the research is proving, are we just going to walk away from our kids and our grandkids? Senate Bill 10, and I want you to go online to the Texas legislature, pull that bill. Pull the testimony from this morning. I've posted it on Facebook. I encourage you to go listen to the doctors and the medical people who are warning against what they are doing, because it is harmful, very harmful to our children. And not only are they using our children and our grandchildren as guinea pigs for research purposes, they're using our tax dollars to pay for it. Yes. So it is the most unethical, immoral thing that you can imagine. And this, I'm telling you, if this bill passes, which it very likely will, this will be on Governor Abbott's head. And as a mother of 3 children, I hold him responsible. And they've partnered with Democrats to do it.
The Senate Committee on Health and Human Services will come to order. The clerk.
I'm Dr. Moira Dolan. I'm a board-certified internal medicine physician here in Austin. Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. I really appreciate being able to speak today. So this bill has several stated goals, all summed up in seeking to expand the delivery of mental health care services. Unfortunately, it continues the trend of taking the complex field of human relations and putting it into a tiny little biomedical box, because it is a medical approach. Despite all what you heard this morning, this is basically a medical approach. This bill calls for academic medical centers to be the central figures in the proposed consortium. Medical centers offer medical solutions, not social, not economic, not skill enhancement or character development. And the medical solution for mental health problems is one thing right now, and that's medication. After all, medical schools are where most of the drug research in this country gets done, to the point of the earlier testimony. Now, a requirement of this bill is to use evidence-based tools, and you heard that phrase here this morning. That concept, evidence-based, is highly respected, almost revered in medicine, but it is stretched to unbelievable thinness when applied to the one example given in the language of this bill, telemedicine. There is evidence that telemedicine increases the number of individuals interfacing with psychiatrists, sure enough. But this is not evidence of a relevant outcome. In medicine, we look for meaningful results. The model psychiatric telemedicine program in Texas, as you know, is called Twitter, and to date it has reported no evidence-based meaningful outcomes. I will leave you with a straightforward summary of the immense validity problems with Twitter. I've provided that here. Now, I do have actual evidence to share with you today. Between 2007 and 2017, this state has relentlessly increased spending on mental health access and has increased the numbers of people engaging with psychiatry. Where are the outcomes from all this expenditure and this increased utilization? Well, according to Texas-specific data from the CDC, the suicide rate among 15 to 19-year-olds in this state has gone up 43% in that same 10 years. We're talking billions of dollars here. Now, that is objective evidence. I don't have time to go into it, but I urge you to read the just published UTMB study that debunks the link between mental illness and gun violence. Now, Senator Kolkhorst, you have done effective work in curtailing over-drugging in our foster care system with a 50% fall in psychiatric medication use in foster kids since the implementation of House Bill 915 that you sponsored. And due to your work, we're increasingly looking to non-drug solutions for them. It turns out that the problems of foster children, a very troubled population, are not medical, and they're not the ones going out shooting up schools.